The next segment, we will talk about work leadership. And I would like to invite Ms. Janet James, Head of Organization and Leadership Development at Aster DM Healthcare, to share her insights on mindfulness and performance, discovering the connect. Janet has more than 2 decades of experience in diverse industries like IT, ITES, BFSI, healthcare, FMCG, manufacturing, and pharma. She has held global leadership positions accountable for enterprise-wide leadership development, L&OD, and diverse change management initiatives. Over to you, Janet.
Hi, thank you for that introduction, Brinda. Sapan, thanks again for having me. Truly an honor and a pleasure to be connecting with everyone who has joined us. Like Brinda said, I'm in Aster DM Healthcare and I'm based out of Dubai. And it's my weekend and I can't think of a better way to spend the weekend than with all of you here, talking about a topic that is so critical for all of us. It's evident, right? Like here we have this group spending over 4 hours plus discussing and understanding mindfulness. So it is a critical agenda for us as individuals and as representatives of your organization. I'd actually like to talk more and highlight more about the impact of mindfulness and organization and individual performance, because there is a clear linkage. And I will use studies, case studies, my own experiences to highlight that, to illustrate that, and also want to leave you with some tools, with some insights to take it forward, because I think that's going to be very critical for all of us. I see all of us as change agents and evangelists of mindfulness post this summit. Just give me a minute. I am going to share my screen. And do tell me if you can see my presentation. Sorry, just give me a minute, please. How's it been so far though, Sapan? How's it going? I'm just pulling you into the conversation, yes? I did see a little bit of the yoga thing happening.
Love to be in the conversation, Janet. I think it's wonderful.
Okay.
Full background has been set by Shabati, Prachi, and Dr. Karan. So now looking forward to the segment.
Okay, super. I wanted to start with the business case on why mindfulness, right? And according to WHO, stress costs American businesses over $300 billion every year. And depression and anxiety costs us almost $1 trillion per year in lost productivity. I don't know about all of you, but when I got this research, I had to take a minute to pause and just let the severity or the gravity of this sink in and really say, oh my God, like mindfulness should be something we should be doing right away. Of course, there are more positive consequences to it as well. There's a lot of research and studies that show the linkage of higher or increased mindfulness to increased employee engagement. Employee engagement, in very simple words, is how invested is each one of you or each of your employees in the job, emotionally invested, behaviorally, as well as intellectually. And the more engaged they are, there's lower turnover and there's much higher productivity as well. There is a direct linkage to how all of us cope with organizational change too. More mindful employees and managers are more open to change. They're more focused, objective, and rational. And I know for each one of us here, and more so because of COVID, we're living with so much more uncertainty and ambiguity. So learning to live and positively cope with change is such a critical mindset for us, and mindfulness drives that as well. There are some recent case studies on nurses and doctors, and they did some, control group studies there. So there was this nursing unit. So a part of them went through a mindfulness intervention, and there was a control group in the same unit that didn't do it. And after a period of time, With the non-control group, they saw a significant improvement in the levels of stress and anxiety. And that led to better patient experiences. All of us have been patients or caretakers in some avatar or in some time in our lives. So can you see the impact of it on critical roles too? There's physicians, a group of 30 physicians, your clinicians, your doctors, who went through something like this too. And 9 months later, there was a reduction in the indicators of depression and anxiety. With all of this, I really want to say that it is important for an individual employee, for the organization, for the business, for the manager, for the leader. It is that critical, and it is an immediate need or call to action. But surprisingly, even with all of this, there's not much research on the linkage or the intersection between mindfulness and productivity. It's very often looked at as an antithesis, actually. It says, nah, they go in separate ways. But there is a very strong intersection of that. A lot of people think that mindfulness is something where you have to take time away from what you're doing and dedicate that time to build the mindfulness. However, that's not the case. That's one of the ways to do it, like meditation and yoga. Mindful productivity is really about doing it on a daily basis. How do you integrate it as a daily habit, a daily mindset? So what is mindful productivity? It is you, in a nutshell, it's you being in the present moment. And I'm really hoping that that's how you are right now, that that's your state right now, that you are so aware and attuned to what's happening around you, the world around you. Remember, there's an external and internal world. So what's happening around you, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, and through all of it, calmly acknowledging and accepting it, because we go through a roller coaster of emotions through every day. But through the ups and downs, you're calmly just saying, okay, I'm going through this, accepting it and moving on. So that's really what mindful productivity is. And in that process of clearly seeing the present moment, you're not pausing, right? That's again linked to that myth that you have to pause. Of course, you can do that, but you can be in action and be mindful. Because right now, for example, I'm so focused on being mindful on what I'm saying, what I'm thinking. I'm trying really hard not to think about what I'm going to say next, but really focus on what I'm saying right now so I can build that engagement with you, right? So it is about, through the action also, you are bringing in that sense of mindful productivity. There are continuous advantages of mindful productivity on how it gives us new perspectives. It helps us enjoy work. Work is, I think, like 60-70% of our life, if not more. Can we not make that a better place for us? It helps us make better decisions. We have higher attention, and there's enough scientific research around it. It's about the prefrontal cortex that takes in the information and helps you make more decisions, more effective decisions. So clearly, there's so many advantages to it. And again, if I have to say what mindful productivity is in a nutshell, it is the power of now. I don't know how many of you have read the book, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, but he talks about being so intensely present in the now that you come from a level of very deep consciousness and with an ease of joy and life in our day-to-day. And even when I read it, I was like, oh my God, I want to feel and transmit this kind of joy and be in this state on a more regular basis, ambitiously every day, but realistically saying more days than not. So how do we do this? Because at the end, we're more than aware that we have really busy days. It's not just work, but it's also personal. Many of you are juggling many roles, and with a hybrid or the work from home model, there is no boundary on where work starts and stops. So it's all blurred lines, blurred boundaries. So how do you do this? The good news is that it takes the smallest steps to do it. And I'm just going to share a few tips. Some of you already know. And it's about that awareness to action as well, because it's about practicing it. Because if you don't practice it, then it's not helping. It's not helping you be more mindful. And remember, when I'm giving you tips or sharing some of my experiences, it's also with the endeavor that you're able to do it for yourself and then cascade that to people around you. Remember, I said we're mindful evangelists. So if you're handling teams, if you're in critical roles where you affect many people, internal and external, how are you able to cascade this to other people? Because at the end, what we need right now in today's world is a much, much more mindful world. I'm not going to talk about all the 6 points that are here. I'm going to talk about a few. And of course, if you have any queries, you can always feel free to share them now or towards the end. I'm going to pick up the first one, which is presence, which is all of us very often are trapped between the past, worrying about the past, worrying about the future, instead of being in the gift of the now or the present, which is now. And just be aware that at the end, just psychologically, negative memories and emotions stay with us a lot more. It's a lot more detailed. So we remember incidents and events where we've felt scared, felt sad, etc. So that is intrinsically how we're wired. But the good news is you can't change that, right? And that is by constantly coming to the now. And sometimes it's just really about just physically saying, okay, where am I now? What can I see around me, etc. But I want to leave you with a tool that's called the Notod Exercise, especially to handle these high negative emotions and events. And it's such a simple thing. It's about journaling, right? And you ask yourself these questions on what happened? What was that event? How did you feel then? How do you feel now? How would you like to feel? And that very often is, I want to stop thinking this way about this event. I want to move on. There is that frustration. And what can you take to bridge that gap? And remember, it's not like you do this one and it's over. Oh my God, now I'm cleansed. That's not the case. I can talk about a recent episode where I thought I had handled something that was a really negative event at work. But recently there was another trigger and I started talking about that same event with almost the same emotion. So it will come up. And in prep for this, by the way, I sat and did this exercise for myself. And I saw that there's still a little more that I need to do. So please be kind to yourself and know that this is a continuous process. It's not like you do it once and it's over with. And see how you can constantly be present in the now to see what's working instead of what's not working, and reframing your stories for yourself as well as others accordingly. The other one is the controversial multitasking. I'm a firm believer of it. Effective multitasking is a myth, does not exist. You're not being effective for multitasking. If right now, for example, and this is virtual, right? You could be doing multiple things. Trust me, you're not fully focused and fully productive and at your best in this moment. The people who have sustained success nowadays are people who can focus, think, execute, move on, and they're ready to do it again and again. These are your people who will be the ones who will have that success and stand apart. And the next speaker, my colleague Sumit, will be talking about deep work, which elaborates on this a lot more. Curiosity. I'm sure many of you have children and you can take yourself back to a time when you were children yourself. And remember how curious we are, or how curious children are. They want to know about everything, the why. Why is it this way? Why not this way? And of course, irritates some adults that way. But that curiosity really keeps them more creative and more aware. And it's really sad that as adults, that dips. And by the way, the dip is from, you have it at 98% plus, and it dips to 5% below as we grow older and older. So mindfulness actually requests and recommends that you balance between output and input. You ask the why, you observe, and see how you can connect it to make your life not just work-wise, but otherwise also better. So you're more creative, you're more clear and focused. And these, remember, all the adjectives that I'm using I'm pretty sure for you, you know that they're all high performance habits or traits. So it's really all about building that. I'm going to talk about metacognition. And this is an interesting concept because it's thinking about thinking or learning about learning, right? Because we very often just start our day, not just our work day, but just start any day, just get into it. You're not thinking about thinking, right? Where you're talking about, not you're talking, sorry, you're thinking about what is it that I want for the day? How does my day look like? What will success mean for me by the end of the day? And you're not just jumping into it, but taking that time. And I know that time, I think, is the biggest gift you can give someone, and it's something that most of us don't have. But trust me, if you take the time to think about thinking, you will gain time because you will be so much more productive. You'll get things done more effectively and efficiently. And then you're able to do much more and just feel so energized about it as well. There is a tool called Roam Research that I've just started using and I love it. It's an advanced version of mental mapping and or mind mapping. And you know that mind map is you think of a topic and you think of the related concepts, right? So for example, this particular topic, you think about mindfulness and productivity, business case study, what it means, etc., right? And you leave it at that because it gives you a basic structure. Rome research takes it deeper. So it goes into each point and says, okay, what else? What more? So suddenly in front of me, I have what I call a mental atlas, right? I have made that many more connections, and I'm hoping that I'm able to add more value because of that. So this is really some of the few tips, techniques, tools, mindsets that can help you be mindful at work. I know a lot of the time we ask about how do we do this at an organization? Many organizations don't believe in this yet, or it's just difficult to do it. And I leave you with this to say that it is about doing it systematically, right? Because that is the only time you can institutionalize it. So to start with, do it for yourself, do it with your team, do it with the people you interact with more. And I can give you some small things that we're doing at Aster, but the smallest things can be the most powerful also. We're evolving in our journey of wellness and mindfulness. The team looks at the strategies as how do we improve the mindfulness for our employees from 4 aspects, right? So emotionally, mentally, physically, financially. So anything that is rolled out for the entire group across GCC and India is under these buckets, because that's where we can create that kind of engagement and impact. And we've done stuff like gratitude with an attitude. And it's just people connecting, sharing what and all they recognize around them, the people that make a difference. And we're a healthcare industry, we're under high stress environments more often than not. But people taking the time at the end of a long day to share, they talk like our nurses and our doctors talk about what a high positive impact it has, where they're able to sit back at the end of a day and say, wait, even though my day was tough, or hey, my day was great, I can remember 1 or 2 people or events or incidents that I'm extremely grateful for. And so like that, we have different kind of initiatives. I'm just giving you one example. So that's one part. But that's not it, right? So what we're also doing is in leadership development, we're trying to see how can we make people more mindful, our leaders, our managers, because they have that impact or that effect on people. In my coaching conversations with leaders, very often stress and burnout come out as some critical issues or challenges. How do you work with them to overcome that and tell them, like, if you are stressed, then you're cascading that to 100 plus people. How can you be better, manage it for yourself as well as other people? And then at an organization level, we're looking at a culture project. And mindfulness is a key tenet of that. So we're looking at practices, policies, etc., that drive this. So if you can see, we're injecting different techniques or different approaches at different levels, because then it all comes together and we're able to build a stronger mindful culture. And another thing is to really see how is it that you can measure this, because the more you can measure it, the more you can report it, the better for you to get your sign-offs and to show that kind of impact as well. So those are some things that we've done at an organization level. Again, if you need more details, I'm happy to share it. But I want to leave you with two quotes from two of my favorite authors. One from the past, Albert Camus, who talks about don't just produce, right? Just be creative, be your best self, and create that kind of world. And Eckhart, who talks about the better future is now, right? So I'm really hoping through this moment, through this current moment right now, each one of us creating a better future for ourselves and the people around us. Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm waiting to hear from you. Thank you.